Hello again and welcome back to our course on PSE 15. In this section we're going to take a look at straightening images. If you've used tools for straightening images in PSE before, you can probably skip this section. When we're talking about straightening images, we're normally talking about making something that should be horizontal, or something that should be vertical. Earlier on in the course we did some work on this particular image, and there I talked about making that slightly sloping hillside in the background horizontal. And I'm going to use this as a first example of straightening an image. And in particular, I'm going to show some of the perils and pitfalls of trying to straighten images using rotation. Let's suppose that I decide that all I need to do with this picture is to rotate it a bit to make that horizon there horizontal. So I go up to the image menu, click on transform, and then free transform, and I get the little handles. I take the one on the corner and I'm going to rotate this to make that horizon roughly horizontal. I'm just going to do it by eye. Having done that, I release the mouse and that's more or less horizontal. However, there are a couple of very unfortunate consequences. One of them is that I'm losing parts of the picture. They're actually disappearing outside the background. What's actually the canvas of the picture, but I'll talk more about canvas later on. But as you can see, some parts of it have been lost, and I've got some transparent parts of the picture now appearing. If I were to just take this as a rectangular picture, let me just commit that. What I finish up with is a picture where I've lost some and I've got some transparency that I don't really want. I could of course crop this, but in doing that I would have lost quite a bit of the picture and I would have had to do a little bit of extra work as well. The good news is that there are straightening tools in PSE 15 that can sort out this problem for us, pretty much doing what I've just described, but doing it in a more automated way. So let me undo the change that I've just made. Now I'm going to go to the modify group in the toolbox, and one of the options there is straighten tool. There are actually three straighten tools. There's the straighten tool, grow or shrink canvas to fit. There's the crop to remove background tool, and there's the crop to original size tool. The names of those pretty much tell you what they do, but I'm going to demonstrate each of them to you. And we'll start with this one, grow or shrink canvas to fit. Now to begin with, let's look at those checkboxes on the right, rotate all layers. That's a fairly obvious one when you've got layers in an image. There may be a situation where you need to rotate one layer without rotating the others in order to achieve straightening. In this case we've only got one layer, so it's not relevant. When we deal with layers though, you're going to need to bear that in mind. And autofill edges, what that basically says is where you finish up with corners like those little transparent corners we had just now, use your own intelligence based on what's around those corners in the picture to fill them in. So the first thing I'm going to do is to do this straightening exercise without autofilling the edges. What happens having selected the tool is that I click somewhere on the picture and draw the line that I want to be horizontal. When I release the mouse, watch what happens. Now you notice how it's done pretty much a similar job to the job that I did just now, but, and this is a very important point, it's actually made the canvas bigger because I haven't lost any of the picture. What it's done is to expand the canvas to make it able to contain all of the rotated image. Now look very careful, for example, at the top left here where we've got that hillside and the sky, very grey sky, and then a bit of field. Let me undo what we've just done. This time I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but I'm going to do it with autofill edges checked. So pretty much select the same line. Again, watch carefully when I release the mouse. And after a little bit of time, what it's done is to use its own intelligence to fill in some content in those corners. and I think it does a pretty good job of that. The one particular thing to note here, of course, though, is that the image has actually got bigger, because it's grown the canvas to accommodate all of the original image after rotation, and it's added some image to the corners as well, so the image overall is bigger than it was before. Before we look at the other two options, just take a look at this bottom right hand corner. What's happened here is that we finished up with a sort of duplicate fence post where PSE has used its own intelligence to fill in a missing corner. If you get effects like this and you really want to remove those, there are various tools and techniques for doing a better job of filling in gaps. We're going to look at some of those later on in the course. Let's now try the second option. The second option is crop to remove background. On this occasion, notice that autofill edges is not available because there won't be any edges to autofill. And if you look, for example, at the top right hand corner of the image, you note that sort of taller bit of tree in the corner there. Let me use this tool, draw my horizontal line on the sloping horizon. Now, as you can see, that taller bit of tree has been cropped away. We finish up with a picture that's slightly smaller than it was to begin with, but there's no more cropping or filling to do because that's all been done by PSE. We've lost a bit of picture, but the horizontal horizon is horizontal, so we've achieved that effect. Let's undo that and try the third option. Now, on this occasion, what it's going to do is crop, but it's going to crop to the original size. So we have the option of filling in the edges or not. On this occasion, I'm going to say autofill edges. So what it's going to do is to rotate to make what I'm calling the horizon horizontal. It's going to do an autofill of the corners, but it's also going to make the image the same size as the original. So let's do that. And there we are. It's rotated, auto-filled as necessary, and as you can see, the image is the original size as well. So I've shown you there the use of the three straightening tools. There are a couple of other straighten options in PSE 15, although these ones give me very mixed results. They will certainly work in the situation where you have something that is definitely supposed to be straight and isn't, and by that I mean horizontal or vertical. But where that isn't the case, such as in this particular picture, they don't really do anything at all. If you go to the image menu, one of the rotate options right near the bottom is straighten image. What happens in this case is that PSE looks at the picture and decides if there's something in it that should be horizontal and isn't, or should be vertical and isn't. You don't draw a line on it. You don't say this is what should be horizontal or this is what vertical. It just looks for something that looks as though it needs straightening. Now, if I use that in this particular case, it does something. I've never quite worked out what it does. It must be looking for a line somewhere, and it decides that it needs to do that tiny little rotation in order to achieve some straightening. But if I go to a different example, I've got a different picture in the photo bin here, that one. With something like this, it will look at that and say, well, I can see a line there that looks as though it ought to be vertical. I'll make it vertical. So let's try this again on that one. Image, rotate, straighten image. And there it's seen something that it definitely thinks ought to be vertical, the side of that tower from the Abbey, and it makes it vertical. If I'd done straighten and crop, let me just demonstrate that. Clearly that would have worked as well. It's cropped and I've got some edges to fill there, of course. I don't really have particular success with those options, but you might want to give them a try. That's it for this section. I'll see you in the next one.